Okay. Recording going? Great. Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Committee of the Whole, Village of Northfield. It's Tuesday, March 19th. It's 5:30. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Fowler. Trustee Dunges.
Here.
Trustee Whitaker.
Here.
Trustee Gallen.
Here.
Trustee Mindrick. Here. Trustee Orth.
Here.
Trustee Fowler was going to join us remotely, but his plane got held up. He will be joining us for the regular village board meeting, and we will approve that later. Next on the agenda, public comment. Any comment from the public or business? Please raise your hand if you, yeah, please approach.
Hi, I'm Lucy Callahan from Peachtree Place
Yes.
in the village. And as of the 15th of April, I will have been in business there for 39 years. It's been a great place to do business. And I have been able to grow from 1,100 square feet to 7,000 square feet throughout those years. The North Shore is a great place to do business, but also we have worked very hard to get where we are today. And it is another hardworking woman, business owner, that I want to speak about first. I'm, of course, speaking of Pam at Metamorphosis. She bought a rundown building in this village, and I remember the bar that was there and the fix-it shop, which we kind of miss, but, and she's put hundreds of thousands of dollars into improving that property, and she has done a great job, and look what it did for her block. I mean, it looks great. It's attractive, it's high-end, and has brought many people over her 29 years to our area. And 29 years, that's something. I can't tell you how many of our customers say, I'll pick it up after my hair appointment across the street. I'll be back. I've got to get to my manicure. I'm rushing off to a massage. There is a wonderful synergy between all of us in this town. But the current roundabout plan is, could definitely put a torch to her business and the preparation of it to ours. It's my understanding that she's losing all the front parking and the side parking, not a couple of spaces, that her business depends on. And the worst part is that we can't find out how those parking spots are going to be replaced. And selfishly, I'm concerned because I know her customers will cross the street and park in our lot, and we barely have enough room, especially at lunchtime, for our customers. I just would think that should be a consideration for a long-time Northfield business by the village. I used to think that I'd made a mistake not buying a building. Now I'm not so sure. I mean, she invested in this town by purchasing her property. One reason, and the most important one, that we are all so successful here, and there are a lot of long-term businesses here in downtown Northfield, and it's that we're so easy to get to. We have the best parking on the North Shore. And yes, being easy does affect business. We suffered greatly during the Willow Road project for almost 4 years. It didn't matter that people from Winnetka could go up to Winnetka Road and come down Hap that way or come down the frontage road. It didn't matter. It killed business a lot of the time. And it really hurt us. Anyway, we recovered from that only to be closed down for 10 weeks and affected by many more weeks by COVID. We are just now recovering from that. And now, besides Pam losing these vital parking spots for her business, all of us will suffer with Hap Road being closed for who knows how long, and nobody can seem to tell us how long that's going to go on. And I just wonder, I know that it hasn't been resurrected, it's been here all along, but how does this project get resurrected and get this far without input from the community? I think we should consider implementing some kind of direct line of communication between the village and the businesses in Northfield. I called my landlord to see if they had been advocating for us, and they were unaware the traffic circle plan was going forward. So how do we get to the point where it's too late to even talk about the problems? I've been told this is a done deal, Lucy. You know, you're too late. And I know newsletters, website, all the information was probably on the website. But if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have time to stand around and say, well, let me check and see what Northfield's doing these days. So in conclusion, I really implore you to answer these questions before you go forward. How will you replace vital parking, and how long will Hap Road be closed and affected? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Callahan. I got to make a few comments. The timeline for the construction of Hap Road is up to the county, and there's been a delay. There's going to be some land acquisition that they are falling behind in, but the projection right now is that it will be in 2025 that the project will start.
But how long will it go on for?
Yeah, that's going to be up to the county as well. And
That's the question we get every time we ask something.
yeah,
Oh, this is a
well, we're hoping to get, the village is hoping to get more defined timeline as the project progresses. I know, speaking to Pam, well, I love both of your businesses, but speaking to Pam, I know Pam was on a phone call this afternoon for a couple of hours, trying to get more answers, which I completely am empathetic to, and hopefully, Pam, we were able to answer at least some of your questions with the participants on the phone call this afternoon. I know the businesses were engaged. It was before my time. This goes back to 2017 when the planning for this started. I was told, I may be wrong, Ms. Callahan, that you actually were involved in a steering committee for that, or at least some study group for that. Yeah. Right. From my perspective, I think the village, could always do more to try to communicate these things. But I do know that there's been multiple meetings in public spaces. We've done the best we can to advertise that in either social media or through our bi-monthly newsletters. But I'm always here to listen to business owners and try to do whatever I can to lessen the impact on businesses. I will tell you that a lot of time is spent personally working with county commissioners and the authorities in Springfield that oversee, for instance, the potential for a parking lot behind Stormies. That will be 22 spaces, if my recollection is right. So that's something I almost work on a daily basis to try to get an update from them. There's multiple agencies involved within the Department of Transportation in Illinois, but it's something that I've been aggressively following up on. Recognizing that parking is a priority in downtown Village, and so thank you for your comments, though.
And thank you for yours. But 22 spots behind Stormies is not the same as a customer of Pam's being able to run across the street. With the kind of weather that we have, with the age of our clients, it's great. Don't get me wrong, we definitely take it, but.
Yeah, I recognize that. And again, this is something that we've worked with from the very start, before my time, actually. It's working to minimize that impact from the county. continue to talk to county about ways to minimize impact on parking in downtown.
But my concern is that we'll never be able to get the answers from the county. Who holds the county accountable to tell us these kind of things? Because the businesses in our area are all long-term businesses. The bakery is now 25 years. They're just now enlarging their business and investing in their business. And so everybody is pretty seasoned. But how are we going to get answers? Every time we ask, it's like, that's county decision, we don't know, you know how they are. I mean, and all of us have been here a long time, we're greatly affected by COVID. And we will be like this if our customers don't have access to us. It's a huge problem for us. And fortunately for me, I can walk away. Pam has invested in this community, and she stands to lose a lot. How would she even sell her building if she decided if her business didn't make it, if there's no parking spots?
I'm wondering whether, because Lucy, and I too am a big fan of both of your businesses, as are my wife. You talked about sort of direct communications with businesses, and I'm wondering whether we should consider a committee of some kind focused on this coming forward, because clearly there's going to be a lot of communications that has to happen. And I'm just asking whether the board wants to create some kind of special committee to deal with business communications during this time, so that it's not just up to you,
Yep.
Greg, to do it, but
Yep.
that we could, if there are a couple board members that want to work on that, it might be so that we could create what we need in terms of the businesses, where to communicate, who's interested. And I don't know how often we want to meet directly, but it seems to be might be a good use of our time.
I think it's a great suggestion, Barnaby, and I think you've been part of discussion about the idea that there's going to be an education that's required for not only the businesses but the patrons about how we're going to get around. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's going to be a challenge for the better part of a year, and it's in the nature of having a roadway, a major road artery coming through town that's on the county's schedule to be redone. Go ahead. Thank you.
If I can, that's an excellent suggestion, I think, too, and I know the staff is anxious to work on that. Part of the frustration in answering very legitimate questions, obviously, is that we don't know exactly when it's going to be closed, because until the bids are actually let, and until the bids are actually let, and until they award a contract, we don't know what the construction schedule exactly is going to be. So I recognize that this started, as was said, in 2017, and it has to feel interminable at this point because the uncertainty itself is a stressor, and for very obvious reasons. We know at the staff level there's important levels of communication we'll need to do, not just for where additional parking might be added on Walnut or other places to try and make up for whatever is lost to get the right-of-way that they're doing, but also of great concern is during the construction itself, signage for wayfinding, signage to show customers where they can park, giving the businesses handout items to give to their customers, advertising on the village's part, all kinds of communication in the papers and social media, and aiding the businesses with their own communications with their customers to make sure that people know where to go during construction and what things are going to be like after construction. Those were all things that, as I've talked to Steve and other members of the village staff, that we're anxious to want to be of service to the businesses. We know it's going to be a challenge, and we're as anxious as you are to find out when the bids are actually going to get let, and so construction schedule. But I know the staff would be happy to work with members from the board to try and.
Tim, I was wondering, and Barnaby, you certainly could talk to this, if it would be worth re-engaging with Chandler Thinks on this project, which is our marketing firm that helps us with newsletters and other communications, to really try to come up with a robust plan for the villages, the businesses in the village center that are going to be most affected. And if we can do that, in the next year, and start some sort of a conversation about when we have a better timeline where we can really do some proactive marketing. I think, Melissa, and Steve, that would help you guys, I'm sure. I mean, it would be a budget item that we'd have to talk about, but I think they would be excellent helping us too. Barnaby, what do you think? You've worked with them before?
No, I agree, and ironically, we were talking to them about the 2026 centennial celebration, and I think some good ideas came there, and who once said, don't let don't waste a bad situation. I think we might be able to, around the construction, come up with some things to enliven our downtown and maybe bring some of these customers that we want with some other events. So I think it would be good. They were very good. I think they get Northfield, so I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, they've worked with us for a long time, so they already know us. So,
I think it's a great idea.
okay. Let us do some legwork and just talk to them and kind of get an idea of cost, to just have a few meetings and think about how we would want to engage Steve, Melissa, the business community. Does that sound at least helpful to you all? I can't solve the parking, but hopefully we can talk about how we can help you get the word out as we get closer.
I understand, we have a great parking lot across the street. And so I'm not concerned about parking so much for my customer. I'm concerned about them being able to get here. And really back when the little project was going on, you would think that it wouldn't be that big a deal to come down from the road and come up to us from behind, or, go down to the next road and take a ride on half. But it was. I can't give you a number as to how much it affected us over that period of time. But it was.
We are all creatures of habit.
Well, and it's not like people make an appointment to come, so if they make an appointment, they'll show up. It's convenient and.
Right. Right.
Lucy, I'm so glad that I ran into you at the grocery store, and we had this conversation. But I'm even more happy that you came tonight to share with us your thoughts. Trustees Dingis's idea is spot on, and I think we had talked a little bit about communications with the businesses directly when we were at the store. But I wanted to follow up on something I think Trustee Fowler brought up, was looking at the Byline Bank property and having a conversation about them, even though they haven't decided yet what they are going to do with that property. If there's any option of pursuing a discussion with them of temporarily renting that property or some sort of an agreement with them to make a temporary parking lot, which I think would help tremendously with the metamorphosis issue with the construction on county.
I have a call that's going to go into Byline Bank in the coming month, and so that's something that will come up. I think it's a good idea.
And I'd love to, hear the follow-up on that, because I think that
Yeah.
that could be something very valuable for you as well.
Yeah. Any other public comment?
Kathy Estabrook. I went to several of the meetings about the roundabout, and never once do I remember anybody saying we would be losing parking spaces. And I think that was a big piece of all of this. In fact, probably the biggest piece of all of this. And so that's a bit disappointing to me, and I can understand why they're having the issue, is because that was never brought up. At least I don't ever remember it.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I I always do this wrong. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Carol, please state your name.
I will.
Oh, sorry.
My name is Carol Ritchell, 811 Hap. And I'm going to try to not stumble too much, but bottom line is.
Carol, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you
I'm
move
sorry,
the-
I just did it.
Perfect.
Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about the discussions that are being had and decisions being made as far as the center of our roundabout. Truthfully, I was reading the March 19th, the minutes from the February 29th meeting, and reading over comments that you folks were having with one another, which made me think, okay, I'm going to try to be quick. It made me think, I just wanted to write a letter about this, commenting upon what you folks said. So I did, in fact, draft a letter. Then I thought, geez, other people might feel the same. So I wound up changing the I's to we's, and voila, in like a day and a half, including St. Patrick's Day and Easter egg hunts, 69 people chose to sign a letter urging you to select the plantings option as opposed to a fountain. And as I spoke to people, many of them, trustees Whitaker and who else? And Orth, they spoke about potential maintenance problems, and that's what all kinds of people said to me. People that I don't even know, they're like, wait a minute, what about this and what about that and what it's ultimately going to cost? Okay, so maybe it's only going to cost us, $600,000 to start out with. And by the way, we did have a fountain in Northfield years ago. What were the reasons for that being dismantled? And anyway, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about this. So y'all received letters, 5 letters with a total of 69 signatures. I just gave Holly another letter with 6 additional signatures, so I think that totals, 75? Other people asked for copies of that letter. There are more floating out there. So I guess I'm just hoping that you folks really do listen to this and seriously consider not doing a fountain. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Any other public comment? Please.
Hi. My name is Vikram Mehta. I am in this town for almost 50 years, 4th house. About turnaround, I want to have the Northville more beautiful looking as anyone else would. The turnaround, I'm architectural engineer by profession. I have done lots of construction in town and around it. The fountain idea is great. If you have, about 1,000 feet of turnaround and 4 lanes, looks pretty aesthetically. But when you have a limited space and 5 things coming in, and if you need any kind of maintenance, there isn't a fountain in north part, our part of the country that you see that is trouble-free. Every year there is a problem, something needs to be done. And particularly in this type of thing, if it needs to be done, you are blocking all the traffic for maintenance people. Second thing is that maintenance continues, and for safety purpose, your visibility, when you can see fire road coming, if you have a structure in between obstructing, and that might even be distracting by looking at it, then there is lots of problem. Safety goes away then, So the cost, maintenance cost, ongoing cost, which is going to keep increasing. You know that, and I know that. Particularly this time, inflation goes on such a rate. So the thing is that I think we want to make it look nice, beautiful, but same time, make it maintenance-free, but also safety is the most concern. You have a big structure, either by the wall or the fountain. I think it is, asking for nothing but the trouble. And maintenance, if you have someone doing every year, you're blocking the road, all the sides around. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving on. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the February 20th, 2024 and February 29th, 2024 Committee of the Whole Report of Proceedings?
So moved.
Second.
Anybody have any comments, corrections? Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fowler, Trustee Dungus,
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker,
Yes.
Trustee Gallen,
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick,
Yes.
Trustee Orth,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, kind of a fun item. We have Bill Byron and Bridget Kennedy with us from the Northfield Park District. And there's a request to utilize Village Tower Road right-of-way. Welcome to you both. Good to see you both.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Kennedy, and I know some of you, but I don't know all of you. I'm currently the Vice President of the Park District Board of Commissioners, and I'm here tonight with our Executive Director, Bill Byron, to discuss an intergovernmental agreement to grant the Park District a license for development of a pocket park in the Tower Road right-of-way. I'd like to read the letter that our Board President, Nate Pave, submitted for your review. Dear President Lungus and Village Board of Trustees, last year, the Northfield Park District adopted our 2023 Comprehensive Master Plan to serve as a roadmap for future improvements over the next 5 years and beyond. A major priority identified during this planning process was to improve the walkability for residents by adding neighborhood parks to underserved areas. Other priorities include exploring collaboration with the Village of Northfield and improving connectivity between planning areas in conjunction with the Village Trail Plan. Last summer, we began discussions with the Village of Northfield regarding the Tower Road right-of-way that is located just south of Temple Jeremiah. With the Skokie Valley Trail already having a planned connection to Hap Road through this space, we felt adding a small park and a playground could maximize the recreational potential of the right-of-way to help us achieve many of our goals listed in our comprehensive plan. This location would provide a park within a short walking distance for many residents in Planning Area 2, which is right up there. As you will see in the concept plan, we would like to add a small playground, benches, a drinking fountain, and wayfinding signage as part of a new pocket park. This unique location is attractive because it sits adjacent to the nature walking path, providing combined access for those on bikes utilizing the future Skokie Valley Trail and walkers who already enjoy the nature trail. We believe the addition of the pocket park and landscape beautification of this site will provide a treasured asset for this neighborhood. Our proposed intergovernmental agreement asks for a license permitting the Park District to develop and maintain this property as described. We have requested an initial term of 30 years, as that typically coincides with the minimum term that the state and federal agencies would require for the property to be eligible for grant funding. Our hope is to add valuable park space to our residents in a cost-effective manner, and collaborating with the Village of Northfield could be an exciting way to make this happen. We appreciate your consideration of our request and look forward to discussing this more in detail. Sincerely, Nate Pave, President, Park Board of Commissioners. I also just have a few more things that I would like to add. This agreement would have a positive financial impact for the Park District. With land in that area going for nearly $1 million an acre, this agreement could save the Park District around $500,000 in upfront land acquisition costs. With many future projects being identified in our comprehensive master plan, any ability to save funds would be very beneficial for the Park District long-term. We've had positive conversations with Rabbi Cohen at Temple Jeremiah, as well as Mike Cohen, whose family lives adjacent to the right-of-way on the south side. Conversations with both of them has given us the impression that this proposed park development would have a positive impact on the area. We have been looking for a property in that area for years, but we've never gained any traction with attempts to purchase. This right-of-way at roughly half an acre is exactly the type of space that we are looking for, and actually better because of the connections to the nature trail and the future bike trail. I am a homeowner in that area, it just happened to be. And I personally know this would benefit tons of young families that have moved to Northfield, especially since COVID. I would have loved to have had something like this when we moved in 11 years ago. Currently, the closest public park for residents in my area is Willow Park, and a parent is probably looking at least a 30-minute walk just to get to the park. Then you have to come home with your kid 30 minutes later. So it's too much. I got in the car, so that's what people would do. This is an opportunity to have somewhere to walk to a destination north of Willow Road. So this agreement would provide the Park District and the village the opportunity to create a fun and exciting new space for all residents to use. Residents on the north side would finally have a close park to walk to, and users of the Skokie Valley Trail and Nature Path would have a place to stop and enjoy the view. We've had a great working relationship and a history of working together, the Park District and the village. And as Nate said, thank you for your consideration of our request. Bill and I are here to answer any questions that you guys have, so thank you.
Boy, I love everything about this plan, and the interconnectivity of our nature trail and Hap Road, and I love the design. I know you've been looking, Bill and I have been talking about this, and Bill, your predecessor, and I have been talking about trying to get some public space up in that area, and so this checks a lot of boxes. I'm thrilled. Anybody else have any questions?
I was going to parlay into what you said is, I've had numerous conversations with both of you for several years, even before being on the board, about how do we get a park on the north side of town. And I know we always talked about that vacant lot on Sunset Drive, but it floods. So I think I appreciate your creativity and the approach that you've taken. This is going to bring another place for the community to gather on the north side of town. I think that, with the Skokie Valley Trail and the Nature Trail, I think it just adds an element. But I think the piece that is most important is you reached out to your neighbors, and you got consent and agreement, and that's so important. And I've talked to Michael Cohen, and with the Skokie Valley Trail and issues that we had talked about there, and if he's happy, I'm happy. Because it's in his backyard.
This affects him the most.
It affects him the most.
Yeah.
And Mr. Cohen, I thank you also for your willingness to have this next to your house. But I think it is an invaluable addition to an amazing park district, which has gone from one building and a classroom at Middle Fork School to what we are today. So thank you guys for all your hard work, you, the board, as well as your staff, Bill, and you.
Anybody else?
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just going to be brief and say, let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I agree. And one more, just it's a nice improvement to what's there. I mean, right now, there's kind of a garden that's in disrepair, and it's going to look good from the road. So congratulations on the vision and the process that you guys have put together.
I think it's a win-win for the community, the neighborhood up there, the park district, the village board, the neighbors. So I wholly support it, and I think it's a great move, and it's long overdue.
Actually, one more question, actually, two. Looks like and Bill, you and I walked at the landscape there, and we're not losing many trees, are we? Any?
Right now, this concept plan, I think, shows the removal of one hemlock. Our first move would be to see if we could transplant it. If not, we'd probably be adding trees.
Great.
And adding a lot of landscape screening to the area.
Right off of Hap Road, I see what is being called the drop bollard. So is that just a bollard in the road to keep cars from pulling it? And is there a signage there?
Exactly, yes. So like what you see on the bike paths where like for emergency vehicles, they can drop it, otherwise it would stop. Because I think that's a 10-foot wide path.
Okay.
People get confused.
Yep.
Think I could drive here. So
Yep.
that would be the obvious stopping point for that.
Got it. And, well, this is great. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Very good. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, guys.
For this great presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a report from our interim village manager concerning village center zoning and planning. Tim, you've been kind enough to put together a very nice report.
Make sure to turn that on. Thank you, Mr. President. We have also a brief PowerPoint to go with this. But the purpose of this discussion is simply to gauge the village board's interest in whether you would like to start a discussion about some updates that I'd like to suggest to you I think might be warranted for the village center in terms of our land uses and our zoning. And if we can, I wish I have the controller here. Isn't that great? All right. The impetus for this is that there are two near future changes coming to the village center. And we've talked a bit about the Hap Road improvements tonight, as we often do. At the end of that project, part of the project is to create this new sense of center, a new sense of place in the village center that's going to be a focus for adding vitality in terms of the desire articulated by the village. And then the 2040 plan is to add new restaurants and add other businesses to this area. Second, that's also coming in the near term is Skokie Valley Trail. It's going to bring new visitors, new recreational uses. It's going to bring a lot of people through the middle of the village. And what's unique about Northfield's position here is it's the only municipality along the entire length of the trail going from Skokie where the trail bisects its central business district. There's no other municipality that has that opportunity. And these trails, whether it's Illinois Prairie Path or other trails that you see in other communities, they do have, if the opportunity is seized, the ability to generate new businesses and new vitality in their village center. Everything from ice cream shops to small cafes, bicycle repair, everything you can think of would tend to locate in these areas, and you do have commercial space in close proximity to where the trail will go. So with these two things in mind, what I wanted to bring to your attention or see if there was an interest in discussing are both multifamily residential and how we handle restaurants. Right now, in your village center, the 2040 plan, as you know, does emphasize the need to increase residential occupancies around your commercial center. It's good for the vitality of the businesses. It's not because you don't have a commuter train here, you're not talking about transit-oriented development or that type of density. But still, to the extent that we can add multifamily within a reasonable walking radius of the village center, you're increasing the, I guess I have to hold this up, increasing the vitality of the village center, or at least increasing the prospects for the businesses. We're going to toggle back and forth a little bit between the maps, but looking at the commercial zoning districts, which is the large map on the right, you see where the village center is in the center, but you also see moving north along the expressway, the OR district. A portion of that is within a reasonable walking radius of the village center. I know that the northern portions of OR are something that the village is concerned about in terms of that being valuable expressway frontage. You may possibly have other businesses that might want to expand in that area, and that's all well and good. But when you get a little bit further south in proximity to the OR district, Oak Street on the west side of Central, south of Oak, is not any expressway frontage at all. The east side of Central is not what you would consider your primary or prime expressway frontage, but they're all within the radius, if you will, of the center of the village, of where your business center is going to be. Right now, you've got considerable multifamily housing south of Willow Road, all the way down to Winnetka Road. And we know there's some developer interest in multifamily north of Willow, but right now there's not a place to put it. There's nothing in the OR district that would allow that to happen. If somebody wanted to do it, they would have to come in for essentially a map amendment or a rezoning of the property. And to my mind, as we said, the support of the village center right now, the zoning and the plan has it as a radius that just moves south of Willow, and an arc, really, instead of a radius that would include area north of Willow. A plan that you get might be good, might be bad, would definitely need your consideration, but there should at least be some possibility for a developer to want to invest the time in doing the type of site planning that would be willing, make it worth their while to bring you an option like that. So if there's an interest in it, what we'd like to start perhaps is a dialogue about that portion of the OR district that's not near expressway frontage, south of Oak Street. Would you possibly be interested in considering that for a planned unit development, whether multifamily or mixed use multifamily? The reason I've initially put forward a planned unit development is I think as you look at the map again, any type of multifamily development is going to involve lot consolidation. It's going to involve a new plat of subdivision. It's going to involve new utility locates. It's going to involve new easements and right-of-ways. Plus, you're going to want to have, planning unit development would give your planning and zoning commissions the opportunity to look at it holistically, to see everything from the materials boards to how it's going to look, the elevations, and to bring it to you as a package for you to evaluate with the residents as to whether or not you think that works for you. But the PUD would be the way to do it, as I said, holistically. And in any event, if something like this comes up, it's going to involve new plats that have to be approved anyways. It's going to require multiple approvals. Why not make that possible? The other subject that I wanted to touch on, again, just to see if there's interest in it, is looking at the village center and your adjacent districts. I've heard it said by the board and read it in the plan that we do want to encourage the location of restaurants, and it's come up in discussions, why have we lost this business and it's been replaced by some other business, but we can't seem to get another restaurant in. Part of that is that, well, first, the restaurants are desirable in the village center. They create the vibrancy that you're talking about. I've listened to the discussions by the board, and it's my shared experience too when we did downtown redevelopment in Wilmette. The new residents that are moving here are often families that are coming back. Typically they have some connection to the village or New Trier. Maybe they grew up here, spouse grows up here, somebody is from the area. They really love the educational resources, they love the recreational opportunities, they love the small town feel of it. What they miss when they're moving here from Wicker Park, Ukrainian Village, wherever they're coming from, where they had that first condo, is that walkable environment where there is dining and entertainment, that sense of place and sense of energy. And, you know, creating new restaurants in the village center attracts that, and it also improves the performance of your existing restaurants. You create a destination by adding restaurants. The existing restaurants benefit from that too. The more that you have, the more of a destination you become. But also keeping in mind that attracting them is competitive. The people who are looking to invest what they have to invest to do this, they're not limited to looking in Northfield any more than they're limited to looking in Winnetka, Wilmette, or Glencore, or anywhere else. So the regulation that you have is a balance between protection and barriers to entry. Protection in that we're trying to avoid undesirable secondary effects. Classic example would be fast food with a drive-through in the middle of the village center. You don't want that. It's not in keeping with the vision that you have. On Waukegan Road might be an entirely different discussion, where there are those uses everywhere from Morton Grove all the way up to Deerfield. You're the only municipality actually that doesn't have one that I can think of, but that's Waukegan Road, that's not Hap Road. The trouble with overregulation is that it can be a barrier to entry. The special use process can be long. It introduces uncertainty and delay. It can be a disincentive to investment. If you're converting existing retail or office space and you'd like to make it into a restaurant, the type of money that has to go into that is very, very substantial. Everything from the black iron they need to exhaust, to new electric, to fire suppression, to ADA compliant bathrooms. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars typically to convert that space into dining. And to do it with a zoning contingency hanging over that initial contract, or to ask the landlord to do it knowing that if that restaurant changes, and they do change from time to time, and that's okay. Once the investment is done in it, concepts for restaurants change. But if every one that comes subsequently is also a special use, that adds that layer of uncertainty. It's a real disincentive to put that type of investment into it, whether it's for the tenant or for the landlord, or an owner-operator who has the property to themselves. Also, a special use process, not that it would here, but I've seen it become sometimes essentially anti-competitive, where some businesses that are in under a special use feel that it's more like a franchise than a special use, and that they have an economic incentive to oppose other businesses coming in, when in fact that's not beneficial to them or the village. So right now, your current zoning is you have what I would call the classic definition of restaurant that every municipality has and has had. And it contemplates the full-service restaurant, the white tablecloth restaurant. Service at a table brought by wait staff, non-disposable utensils and dishware, principal business, and currently in your zoning ordinance, it's a special use in every zoning district. And that is how everybody's zoning ordinance has been, really up until recent years. But what you find is that now, in order to attract restaurants and compete to attract the restaurants, it's beneficial to come up with a more nuanced definition. And when you look at all your peer communities around you, all of them have definitions of restaurant that run 4 or 5 layers deep, that contemplate all different types of restaurant concepts, and then try to come up with the ones that fit in the zoning district that you have. So, for example, and I'll begin with Wilmette's, and let me put it this way. There are people who admit about pride of authorship, and then there's liars. So, all right, that's why I have Wilmette's up there. But also, I've highlighted a part that I want to come back to, which is the specialty restaurant, and I'll touch on that later. But as you can see from this definition, you've got all different types of varieties of restaurants. You have the kind of classic full service. You have carry out, which might be like a Domino's or something. The limited service restaurant would be your classic Panera. And then what we endeavored to do was come up with a specialty, which was meant to cover the small, unique type of food service, which would be candy, ice cream, bakeries, things like that. Small footprint that really fit in with a downtown environment. But the benefit to having multiple types of classifications is then you can pick and choose which zoning districts you want them in and make the ones that fit in that zoning district a special use and still treat the others as permitted uses, and the special use is an incentive to locate. Not to just focus on Wilmette though, but Winnetka has a substantially similar where they also, they call out drive-ins separately, and Wilmette, that would be an accessory special use. In each case, in Winnetka and Wilmette, the full-service restaurants are permitted uses in practically all their commercial zoning districts. Limited service is a consistent definition that you'll see among other municipalities, also meant to get at, the Paneras and other restaurants where the food may be served in disposable, you might order it at a counter, but it's not drive-through and all the different secondary effects that go with that. Glenview as well, another peer community that you compete with for restaurant business in the relevant market, has essentially similar definitions. So not to wade through all of them, but just to illustrate the point that this is consistent. And I don't mean in the written materials you'll have a treatment of Northbrook and Glencoe in there. They actually, I didn't have those definitions up because they utilize a census definition of food businesses that's very, very detailed, but also has multiple layers, and again, gets different treatment in all their different zoning districts. With all respect to one of our guests in the room, Kenilworth now has diversified their definition of restaurants into at least 2 layers. And while they're still special uses, my understanding is that they're also considering making them permitted uses in their central business district. Again, as an incentive to get them to locate. So for the village, again, looking at your village center map where the district runs all the way to west to where the hardware store is now, which is also identified in the 2040 plan as potentially a dining destination where you could really activate the river that's there. That's certainly an area where you might want to consider a restaurant as a permitted use. You know, and let me add as an aside, when we talk about something as a permitted use, that doesn't mean that you're abdicating all regulatory authority over it. Let's say you were redeveloping that hardware store site, just the strange, not quite flag-shaped, not trapezoidal either, but that weird lot configuration almost guarantees you're going to need variations when you redevelop it. Whoever goes in is going to need a liquor license. Whoever goes in is going to need a design review and elevations approved. So it's not that you're not exercising regulatory authority over it. You're removing the layer of uncertainty and delay in terms of being able to invest the time that people need to come up even with basic plans and a basic budget and business plan as to how they would make something like that work on the property. My other thought is that along the right-of-way running south from Willow Road, between the Marianos and once you get south of the post office and the library, there are commercial occupancies there, and there is going to be, has already been expressed, some interest in what we will do once the Skokie Valley Trail is here. And that would be a perfect environment, I think, for you to have those type of small specialty dining that would really fit in, would give people a reason to stop. Willow Road itself, you know, especially if the hardware store is redeveloped, is going to have its own reasons to stop, as well as the plaza just across the street where you already have good dining options, as well as along Orchard here where you have restaurants like Stormy's. So there's going to be reasons to get people to stop. We just need to offer more reasons that appeal to more people, families with kids, people, instead of riding their bikes, they're pushing the jogging stroller, to whom the cookie store or the ice cream shop or whatever would be an appeal. So my suggestion is that we would consider, or that you might wish to consider, adding restaurants as a permitted use in the village center of the class that you want. That would probably be your specialty restaurant and your full-service restaurants. Others would be special uses, and by having a more refined ordinance, you can also have separately treat the business district along Waukegan Road, which is, as we said, is a completely different animal from your village center. And you know, you can tailor your restaurant definitions to each of your commercial zoning districts in a way that is not done right now. So really, I guess at the end of all that, what we're asking for, and I've talked with Steve about this and also talked with the manager designate that you'll be talking about later tonight, about how to carry this forward. And if the board has an interest in this subject, I think the next step would be for the staff to try and refine some of these ideas, to engage with maybe the chairs from P&Z and zoning to get some input from them on this and get some of their expertise and experience, with the idea being that the board would review this again once or twice, but eventually, if you do decide you'd like to amend the zoning ordinance, I think the referral that you want to send to planning and zoning is something with some real structure to it, something with some actual meat on the bones, if you will, that gives them real direction for the type of public hearing you'd like them to hold, give them their feedback back to you before you would then later on be voting on an amendment to the zoning ordinance. That's kind of far down the field, but we didn't want to, or I don't want to engage in those discussions or start engaging stakeholders, and at some point in the process, engaging with the business community too, obviously, once there's a little bit of structure to talk about what you'd be looking at and get input. But we don't want to start down that long path if the board doesn't have an interest in this or has some concerns that they'd like to discuss first. That's all well and good, but my purpose here is simply to start the ball rolling if this is a discussion, you know, an area of exploration you'd like to have.
Well, and I have to say it because we had a brief conversation one night during one of our meetings, and it really is important that we look at this to the point that the next morning I actually emailed both the village president and Tim and said, this is something that we need to explore because I think we're losing out on a lot of opportunities. I think that what you've done, I mean, you've proven in Wilmette that an ordinance like this works very well. And I think that we would be missing a real opportunity if we didn't pursue this quickly. I think that one of the things that we did as a board that was really important was in the business district, we changed the ordinance, or the zoning ordinance on retail space that doesn't allow first floor medical. And I think this is just one other step into trying to make our downtown, our business district, more attractable for businesses that want to come in. And, you know, I've heard people who love Northfield want to come here, but the hoops that they have to jump through to go to get a special use permit is really difficult. So in my opinion, let's move forward with this.
Tim, thank you very much for all your work on this. Obviously, there was a lot that went into this. And obviously, you have a vast amount of experience doing this in Wilmette, and I think you've done a great job putting this all together, laying the groundwork for the next village manager to kind of help him out in that venture, and also staff that I know is always looking for these kind of directions. I agree with Trustee Whitaker. I think this is something that we need to move forward on pretty quickly so that we don't lose any opportunities if someone does want to come into town, because currently it seems to take quite a bit of time to go through all the processes if a restaurant or business wants to come in. So I applaud your work on this. I think as a board and as a village, we need to move forward on this, and I think there's a lot of great ideas and a lot of great foundation that you laid for us. So thank you again for all that work on this.
I guess I would just say, quickly is a relative term, because if you're not familiar with the commercial real estate market right now, it is at a standstill and will remain there as long as interest rates stay as high as they are. So this is the perfect time to be reviewing this sort of a zoning opportunity for our village. But I will say that we should be very thoughtful about it and meticulous and make sure we make the right decision. And between commercial real estate downturn and, you know, our existing businesses have already told us what Hap Road is going to do to them. I would say chances of someone coming in and trying to redevelop something until Hap Road is settled is probably not great. So again, yes, I absolutely agree that we need to do it. And, you know, I as well nudged Greg and asked him for his wisdom, having spent a lot of time in Wilmette at those restaurants. So I think it's a great idea, but I think that we just, you know, we need to do all the right things and make sure that our existing businesses are on board and we have that dialogue with them, as well as, I mean, I would argue that we should also look at Waukegan Road at the same time. You know, Steve, you can comment on that as well, but that is an area that is fairly well developed right now, but changing some of that would allow other opportunities when the time came. So doing it in a more holistic view of those two areas, and if we don't want a, you know, drive-through fast food restaurant in downtown Northfield, great, but Waukegan Road, you know, if the opportunity arose, it could happen there. So there are places where I think we can do both. And I as well look forward to working with our new village manager on this endeavor. And the presentation was great, so I really appreciate it. And let's keep moving it along.
Great comments, Tracy. Anybody else from the board?
Yeah, if you're looking for direction, it's a great idea to do. I support it. In terms of process, where will this go and when does it come back to us? And you spoke a little bit about it, but just if you can fill me in a little bit more.
I guess what I envision is first for the board to consider a thoughtful discussion on it before you make a referral to planning and zoning, which is required by the zoning ordinance to hold the public hearing before you can do a text amendment. But it wouldn't be a service to the residents or the businesses or planning and zoning to hand them something that isn't fully formed and well-structured, and had some public engagement on it already. So yeah, I mean, that was the thought is having judged the board's interest in it, then we can come back with another report to you that suggests what some actual amendments might be. And yes, we definitely do have in mind Waukegan Road as well as, because they both need to get treated. If you do, amend your ordinance on defining restaurants, you have to cover all the zoning districts, not just the village center. Yeah. I think the impetus for the village center is that this will take some time, and Trustee Mendrick's quite right. The financial market is not conducive to new business. Basically, if you want to open a restaurant, if you don't have private equity or private money, you're not going to the bank to get it. But there are some out there with private equity now. But the time, I agree with her completely that the time to do it is now, so that at such time when the Skokie Valley Trail is finally coming online and the end is in sight on Hap Road, those who are seeing an opportunity there are not disincentivized from coming here as opposed to going to Glenview or Glencoe or Winnetka or Wilmette or any of the other peer communities in your relevant market. I think they have a temporary advantage by having a zoning ordinance that doesn't require a landlord to have to agree to a 180-day zoning contingency every time they want to bring somebody in. So that would be the process, is to come back to you with something that the board is comfortable with, and then we have a referral to P&Z for the public hearing.
And I'm sorry, Barnaby, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add that while this conversation has been really focused around restaurants, I do think, and I know you'll include it, that we'll continue to talk about multifamily senior housing in all of these discussions as well. And then when everybody on the board is done, I was going to say we have 2 members of P&Z here. I don't want to put them on the spot, but if they had any thoughts or any comments they wanted to make, we certainly would love to hear. You guys deal with this more often than we do, but it's okay if you don't.
They look really pleased that you pointed.
I know, right? I'm sorry. Barnaby, did you have anything else to add? Or
I'll be super quick, and just thank you, Tim, for lending your expertise to this. You've had a lot of things going on, and I think it'll be a nice legacy of Tim Frenzer that you left this body of work to us to work on. And I get tired of reading the North Shore Record and seeing Jersey Mike's and Wilmette, or, we're hungry here too. So I think there's hunger for this. It'll be great. And I was excited by that area that little patch you talked about between Mariano's. I think there are spots that once the trail is here, but not to interrupt, go ahead.
Hi,
Thanks,
Bill.
Tracy. Hi, how are you? I'm Bill Vasilopoulos, Chairman of Plan and Zoning, for those that don't know. I think it's a great idea in general. We need to look at what should be still special use and what should not be special use. I think it does hinder certain things. And to all of your comments about how the time is ripe right now because of 2 developments that are going to occur, the trail and Hap Road. That makes a lot of sense. The only comment I would make to that is the advantages of coming before P&Z is allowing the rest of the community to chime in on that development, in particular the parking, in particular the traffic that would generate from any new business that comes in. And as we all know, parking is a huge issue around here. Traffic is a huge issue around here. So we got to be careful of threading that needle of addressing, of allowing a little greater flexibility so we can be competitive, but still addressing the needs that new development, the concerns that the public would have about new development and being allowed to go to P&Z to express those concerns, and then addressing parking and transportation issues, traffic, access, stuff like that. So that's my only comment.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, I think, Tim, a lot of these discussions also centered around us talking about making it easier for restaurants to be able to come in and not have that long process. And I think that's initially how this started. I think that's the part that I'm looking and keen on. If a restaurant does want to come in, to make it a lot easier for them to come in and not make it a special use and have it so that they don't have to spend, the enormous amount of time going through the process. So, I mean, I agree with what everyone said, but part of this also started because when I was talking to Tim about some of the things and ideas that he had coming from Wilmette and things that we could kind of incorporate into Northfield to improve our business district and make it easier for some restaurants. So that's kind of how some of this got started. And I think the whole restaurant thing is one of the keys, and is also working with the other businesses. But the time is right now with what we said in the next couple of years and get this, put together nicely so that it can be easier for restaurants to come into town.
Well, and Bill makes an excellent point in terms of the kind of Jenga puzzle that is the zoning for this. It's lifting, calling a full-service restaurant a permitted use in the village center. It's not going to mean that it's not going to have some sort of zoning that's likely going to have to be reviewed. Parking is going to be the obvious one, but the standards of review and the discussion in terms of standards of review are different, obviously, between a variation hearing and a special use hearing. And to the extent that there's, going to be a parking variation that might be needed, at least when you go through that zoning process, they'll have your commission will have a chance to look at it holistically in terms of the other uses. Let's say if it's in one of the shopping centers, what are the other uses there? Is the restaurant use going to, restaurants often have parking that's referred to as complementary, depending on the other uses. If the other uses in the center are primarily daytime uses, professional offices, or specialty retail, whether it's a butcher or a violin maker or something like that. Sometimes while they might all collectively might not come up to the standard in the zoning ordinance for how many spaces you need, if planning and zoning gets to look at it holistically, they might see, or there may be a circumstance where some of the businesses that need the parking there don't need it all at the same time. And therefore, it's not quite as big a leap to grant a variation. But so that safety valve of the process, definitely you still want to be there. But, let's say you had an existing restaurant, let's say, and sometimes, not just choosing them out because they're right across the street and they're the biggest one, but let's say the family, let's say they wanted to sell or something like that, hypothetically. And you have, and Phil Stefani comes to town and says, I want to do a concept here like I did in Lincolnwood on Cicero. You want to hand them a special use application for existing space to be converted, at least if it's a permitted use and there's already the use there and it's already, it may be that there's an existing variation there for, or at least the parking's been dealt with previously through your process, and it's not as heavy a lift for the applicant then. So, but Bill makes a great point. There's a lot of moving parts here, and that's why it needs to be, to your point, it's got to be a very thoughtful analysis.
If I may?
Go ahead, Bill.
Absolutely correct, and you're making a distinction that's really important, and I've always been curious about why existing establishments, when they get the new ownership, have to come back to P&Z all the time. Everything has been laid out, especially parking, and Hap Inn was a primary example of that. We had to work really cleverly to address the parking situation there. It's been addressed, and I think it's been established that it works okay. It works more than okay. I think it works fine. So having to go through the whole thing over again with a brand-new owner is, in most cases, if not every case, not really a necessary thing to do. But the first time it's being established, when you're converting it from a retail to a restaurant or something like that, and you have a different type of audience, a different type of customer base at different times of the day, that's something that would need to be. Anyways, thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Bill. Tim, thank you for this work. I think the timing is right. I think this board's giving you enough feedback on the framework. I think working from what you recommended in this report is a great start. So let's continue the conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have an update regarding the village boundary signage. This is something Charlie Orth and Tim Frenzer and Mike Nystrand have been working on. Tim, do you want to give us an overview?
Okay. I don't know if we have one of our new sample of one of our new boundary books. There we go. We have a sample of one of our new boundary signs over there. We just wanted to quickly update the board. We have are going to ask Public Works to install it on initially 4 locations, just to try it out, see how people like it, get some input on it. 3 of the locations on Waukegan, Sunset, and Hap have existing population signs that are out of date and not even consistent in appearance with each other. We think this would be an improvement in terms both of appearance and at least updating the population number. And there's another one we thought, after going through the list with Trustee Orth, Willow Road at the East Village limits might be another good place to have it too. That's by Forest Preserve property. It's not next to anybody's house or anything. But it would be, before we make giant plans to roll this out all over the place, we think it would be advisable to do this kind of demonstration. Start with 4, see if, anybody, maybe the reaction's favorable, maybe there's issues with it, maybe nobody cares. But, start with those 4, and then if if the board is still happy about it, then, Public Works would be able to gradually do more of them based on resources and available time. I know springtime is very busy for them, but so we're trying not to overload them with the number of sites, but still have enough out there to replace the ones that need to be replaced more immediately.
I like these 4 locations. I think it makes a lot of sense. Anybody on the board have a comment?
I do. I have a question about the sign northbound Hap, south of the village limits, because there's a beautiful Northfield Gateway sign down there already by New Trier.
Well, the gateway sign, the way it's set up now, because of the county and the sidewalk and the Forest Preserve District, is off farther where you really almost don't even see the gateway sign, unfortunately. And I talked to Tim about this, and it's in a location where you don't really see it, especially at night, because it's not illuminated. So the thought was also with working with the census, when we did the census update, which I was the one involved with, was there's a sign that's there now. So all we want to do is replace that sign. And also, the other talk that was brought up in discussion was making Mike was making the actual number a little bit bigger, because the number's kind of small, and I don't think that'll be a problem to make it a little bit bigger. But that was one of the other, and there were 2 other locations that we kind of talked about that I'd like to see.
But we're just talking about the signs that are on here, and that's why I was asking, because I just think it's a little, it's redundant to have 2 signs, but if it's all about the census number, then I have no further questions.
It's kind of all about the census number. What I would say is that's a lovely wooden sign that's out there. I wonder if the county insisted on it being that far off the right-of-way because it's not Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices compliant sign, which is what they usually insist on. The main reason to have a boundary sign like this is because if you have a village-wide speed limit, which you do, if you want to be able to enforce it, you got to have a boundary sign along with the speed sign. And so if you're going to have a boundary sign, it might as well at least look nice. But that's why that one would go closer to the road. I don't see any reason to remove the other one that's there. I mean, it's lovely, albeit unfortunately set back far that you have to kind of look for it when I notice it all the time, but I don't know if everybody does. But in any event, to have one close enough to the road to count as a regulatory sign, which that would, it's got to be compliant with the code, yeah.
And speed limit in that area is critical, so it's makes sense.
Well, and part of this project too is also to identify that you are in Northfield. It comes with, it ties into pride in the community, knowing what town you're in when you're in the town. So obviously, I identified basically 14 areas that you can enter the community. Obviously, we're not going to put them all there. There's a couple other ones that I think have a higher priority that also could be the next couple that we can discuss and decide as this other works. I mean, I think with what we did with working with Mike and with Tim, I think it's a beautiful sign. I think it's much better than the signs that we have currently, and we also have to update the population. So that's why this kind of came into being. And Trustee Fowler had approached me because he said, hey, the sign over on Sunset Ridge Road is way outdated and falling apart, and it's got the wrong population number. So we have 3 population signs now that have 3 different populations. So we want to try to, this is something we've been working on, looking at for a while to get it accurate. So.
One question, can people who are watching, I know we've got a lot of people streaming tonight, can they see the sign, or is it a mystery? Should we put it out so?
They cannot see the sign. We can
Okay.
put it in front of the podium.
How heavy is it, Charlie? Do you want to grab it, just so people can see it? Because we know they want to see it.
We have 3 people watching now, so.
Well, but they each have people sitting with
2
them.
of them are me.
But it'll be on the permanent record. It's a nice sign.
Oh, that's funny.
No, I was not here a week or 2 ago when we were talking about it, and I didn't see it, and I was feeling I was missing something.
Actually, Steve, if you could put it in front of the podium, 'cause it doesn't.
It can speak for itself now.
In front of,
Can we interview the sign?
Thanks, Steve. Great.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So as you can see, the
We'll
numbers.
activate this microphone so that the camera focuses and sees this beautiful sign.
Very nice.
You can see the population number's a little small, so that's one of the things that I don't think, Mike, there won't be a problem making those numbers bigger, right? No. Okay.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Any other comments? Any other business? Can I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Cohen. I'm at 885 Hap Road. I just wanted to quickly comment on the work I did with Bill. I was very impressed with how he came and collaborated with me. Really appreciative of how he was talking about how we could protect my backyard especially. I did want to point out that with the Skokie Valley Trail and the talk we've had here, I've worked with the village, Melissa, quite a bit on the area where the trail goes. I appreciate that getting pushed a little further from my house, but what we haven't really considered at all is any type of shielding and landscaping once the path is put in. I don't think that's part of the project, and I'd like the board at least to consider when that project comes up and there's construction costs to think about shielding of homes with, let's say, evergreens. And there's going to be a lot of traffic and use of that. Be great.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Anyone else? I have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will reconvene in 10 minutes, 7 o'clock.